You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunid, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, Darius Ross. Now, Darius is the founder and managing director of D. Alexander Ross Real Estate Capital Partners, specializes in SME, large businesses, and real estate acquisitions from $250K to over $1 billion. Now, this man has over 30 years of experience, not just experience, but entrepreneurial experience. And he has advised on deals worth over 100 bills. So I'm really excited to have him come on here because he has an upcoming book dealing with entrepreneurial mindset and how that helps businesses set businesses for success, looking at the mindset, the leadership, and the corporate culture. So it's really, really enlightening to have him on here. So with no further ado, Darius, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Lindy. I appreciate it. Looking forward to having a good conversation today.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time. I really love a hero's journey. You do have over 30 years of experience, entrepreneur's experience. So let's talk about what got you here to your current venture.
The biggest takeaway from my experience was going through and experiencing hardship. You know, once you go through hardship and once you go through the survival and the adaptability and so forth, which is like part of one of my programs I talk about, you know, acknowledging the fact that when you fall off of corporate America or when you get kicked out of corporate America or when you just leave a job inadvertently and you say, you know what, I'm tired of this job. I want to do something different. And you go from job to job to job until you finally realize, okay, a job is not for me. You know, maybe school was not for you per se. Maybe you were looking at, you know, you were the kid that was kind of like the Zuckerberg or some of the other characters that played a role in entrepreneurial America, that you realize, okay, I need to do something different and I need to be guiding my own ship. And you start creating your own ship. And that's kind of how this all started for me. You know, being able to say to myself, I want to create my own focus, my own goals. And being the wired earth, as I'm called, you just cannot accept orders necessarily. You have to create your own ship.
Yeah, a man with vision. When did you first find out like the 9 to 5 or listening to orders was not for you and you needed to build your own ship per se and kind of follow your own dreams?
I had a guy that I was working for a company. It was a spring and wire company. And one afternoon, I was getting ready to pack up and leave. And basically, he walked over to the desk. He looked out the window and he said, come here. Why don't you look out the window? And I looked out the window and he said, you see that car out there you bought? I helped you get that car. He said, so now, from now on, you're going to put pumps and high heels on in the thong and you are my bitch. So from this point forth, you do what I say do. So you will not be leaving here until all these receipts and invoices are done. So at that point in time, I said to myself, well, now I'm going to have to put my high heels and pumps on. But this time, I'm going to change the game. I'm going to do this as long as I got to. But when this thing changes, you best believe I'm going to be a different character. So that's when I started on the way out the door.
Oh, good for you. I love that's a great story. And I know you didn't start right off with real estate. Tell us what the first ventures were for you.
Actually, the first venture was in real estate. I bought 4 multifamily properties that I call best known as, if you want to call them, they were basically standing up with nothing more than a kickstand. I mean, literally the buildings were falling down in Gilbert, New York. And so when I bought those, I ended up losing those because this was during the late 90s when they had something called Resolution Trust. And unfortunately speaking, I lost those during that time period. But I learned something very interesting about that experience. Do not overspend what you don't have, because you think the income is coming in from the rent and you go, well, I can buy this, I can buy that. So I learned that lesson. But that was my first experience buying properties that basically you could not, you know, really fix. But you figure, I'm in the real estate business. What the hell? I'll keep it moving.
Yeah, that's good to know. It's always about lessons, right? Not regrets. That with these experiences, that's part of the mindset that you teach. Let's elaborate on that.
One of the things I talk about is my ALA mindset. I have a program that talks about that. It's called accountability, adaptability, and liability. Now, in the accountability aspect of it, you have to basically say to yourself, you know what, I screwed up. And I use another word. I use the F word. And, you know, you did it. Okay. Now, the liability factor of it is, what is the most uncomfortable, the least thing that can happen that you got to deal with. What can go wrong? Bankruptcy, okay? And then last but not least, adaptability. How can you change your mindset or your methods to adapt to a new situation to get you out of where you are? So in that ALA principle, that's very important. Then I have the gorilla mindset thing that I talk about. With the gorilla mindset, I go back to the Vietnamese and how they were when they were under the tunnels and the United States was on top. I go, now let's go figure. At the end of the day, here was a group of people that were basically with the most advanced technology in the world, basically pea shooters, and they were still kicking butt. So I talk about that, how to use that guerrilla mentality to function. So the bottom line of it is your mentality is everything. I learned in the martial arts, no matter what the situation is, you can get out of it. You just have to figure out how to adapt.
Yeah, mindset is key. And then you mentioned the gorilla mindset. Now, that doesn't, you think a gorilla big and bad, right? Yeah, so assertive and aggressive. Is that what you're asserting to?
No, not by any means. Back in the day, there was a program that was called Magilla Gorilla. It was like a television cartoon show, right? And during the same time, there were the gorillas that they were talking about in Vietnam. So when I looked at it, I thought it was a funny thing. I'm like, they're the same thing. How are these gorillas so bad? Like Planet of the Apes, right? Well, the bottom line of it is the gorilla mentality is the ability to adapt to any terrain, any circumstances, any situation, and use the most basic techniques or tools that you have at your disposal. So it's kind of like this show they have, MacGyver. How do you adapt to situations when you only have a few things to work with? How do you change and how do you maneuver and how do you set up, especially when you're outmanned, outgunned, and outmatched? There's a book called Sun Tzu, The Art of War. It talks about it. How do you adapt to situations when you have nothing to work with other than your mind? So that's kind of where that guerrilla mentality comes in. How do you adapt to situations when your back's against the wall? And the other guy knows that you don't have anything else to work with, but what you do have is your mind. He doesn't know what you're thinking. That's what's important.
Right. And then how to be resourceful because they're taking away from you. And your book is dealing with a lot of that, right? The entrepreneurial mindset, because you're setting up the people you work with to be formidable, to have this gorilla mindset. Tell us about some of the success that you see once that shift takes place and how people can actually start accelerating their businesses to the next level.
You can accomplish anything if you understand that you have to change the flow of how you think. For example, I always say my programs and my ideologies are not for everybody. I'm too tough. I'm a drill instructor. So when you sign up for the programs, I tell you right off the bat, the likelihood of you succeeding is zero. But if you understand that concept, then here we are. Because my bottom line of it is you have two choices, either fail or fail. Okay? That's the two choices. That's it. Success is a given. Okay? So with that in mind, when you look at it, I give an example. I go, okay, we're going to be sitting across the battlefield. There is a cache full of weapons and the other guy has 1 million people, right? And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, what are you going to do? This is the scenario I put in place. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell you right off the bat, we're going to die. So we only have two choices. We either have to take as many as we can or we're going to die. Simple as that. So I'm looking at what you're going to say. Are you going to say we're going to fight because the day is not our day? Or are you going to say, well, we're going to surrender? Well, I'm looking for the guy that says, or the gal that says we're going to fight. Because at the end of the day, death is a given. What do they say? Anticipation of death is greater than death itself. So if you realize it's going to happen, then you're prepared. So in that mindset, entrepreneurial or anything else, you have to understand it's all hands on deck. You have no other choice but to fight. This is your life. This is your business. This is your livelihood. This is what you strive to do. You walked out of corporate America, which was a guaranteed check. So how do you think you'll get this check now unless you fight for it? Nobody's going to give it to you.
Yep. Fight or die. Die or fight. You got to put on them gloves.
You see my boxing gloves behind me there.
Yeah.
We're going to duke it out. And that's a rhino back there. So he means business.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that. Now, having your expertise and you're helping so many clients as well, but your expertise in real estate, give us some tips for individuals who are thinking about starting, especially with multifamily homes, looking to build that wealth on that front.
The number one thing of it is that you have to now dissipate the concept of luxury cars. You have to dissipate the concept of luxury items. You have to get away from the designer mindset and realize if you buy the property, and this is a big thing in the minority mindset. As a minority people, one of the biggest things that we do is want to deal with the luxury lifestyle and this, that, and the other, where that's different from the majority. They think in terms of generational wealth and creating that. So you won't see as much of this designer mindset, okay? The Cadillac Escalade versus the Chevy GMC, same thing, gets you where you need to go. So as a result, if you take that same $50,000 or $100,000 you spend in that car and put in that multifamily, now you can buy the luxury item because now you have the tenant paying you the income to buy the luxury item. Nothing wrong with buying it, it's just how you buy it. So every time you buy a property, You should take that money and then put 80% of it aside for, the next generation, maintain that, 20% aside for what you want to do, and then you're okay. But the bottom line of it is you have to think in terms of getting rid of the luxury items and focusing on how do you build wealth. And that wealth is built on every property that you buy. If you're buying it on 80-20 principle, right? 20% down, 80% in debt. Go to the next one, 20% down, 80% in debt. The income from each property keeps on generating more money or more wealth to be used to the next property. We don't use it as a minority people, so that's why we stay in a constant state of flux. For example, when a lot of cases people die, they don't leave anything behind. And they don't leave anything behind because we don't use in terms of insurance. If you insure the property, let's say, for example, for say $200,000 or $300,000, and it's a $200,000 or $300,000 property, the person dies, that's $200,000 or $300,000 more that now can go to another property. We don't think in terms of leveraging.
Yeah, that is insightful in thinking of leaving that legacy and thinking ahead. And that's what you really teach the clients that you work with. What other tips that they can, if they're considering it, can apply really to get started?
Thinking in terms of their expertise. Okay, say, for example, if you were in corporate America and you were good at management, there are 40 million businesses that are going to be sold or going out of business between now and 2030 that are being owned by baby boomers. Why not consider buying those businesses? They're going to go out of business anyway. And most of them, of that 30, 40 million, less than 10% will be sold. So the majority of those will go out of business. Those are good, solid businesses that can be bought. And since you were a corporate manager or you worked in, let's say, plumbing and heating, buy your own plumbing and heating business. You worked as a plumber, but you worked as a plumber under somebody else. Get your master plumber's license and buy the business. Simple things, and it's not a lot of money involved because basically a lot of these places are 10% down SBA loans and or money that you saved up. So it's the same thing. Create generational wealth. Focus these kids and force these kids that we have, and versus getting all these advanced degrees, focus them into situations like being in a situation of technical degrees. That technical money is just as much as the advanced degree because it makes just as much money, if not more. Construction, tech, and so forth. The money is there. We're just not forcing these kids to say that they need to do things in the right areas.
Yeah, and building that work ethics and making sure that they have employment. But I do like the idea of buying the businesses that are already going out, because then it's almost like a turnkey operation, right? With the real estate, because then the management's already in place, the customer's already intact, system operations already afloat. You just kind of come in and take it as is and continue.
And the best part about it is you're already in the position because you're already a manager. You left corporate America as a manager. You're telling me you can't manage a business that's already there? The system's already there, like you're saying, and everything is there, customers and everything. All you got to do is keep the program going. And more importantly speaking, expand it. You can take that same business and continue buying other businesses.
Yeah, I've not heard that piece of it, but I do like that. We see it all the time under new management, all these pop-up small businesses. That's what's happening. Yeah, that we're talking about next generation. I like that you mentor the younger generation that is coming up on building generational wealth, on building, using their skills and talents. What is your mentorship approach to this younger generation? Because not only are they tech savvy, but they don't believe in the 40 hours a week. They don't believe in the 9 to 5 over 40 years type of work. So does that help make it easier for you to mentor them into that entrepreneurial space?
It becomes a problem in some ways because they look at TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and IG as the be all and end all, which is fine. But here's the problem. If you're looking at all that money and you're taking these vacation trips, you're busy doing selfies and all this kind of thing, you're making these money and you got all these friends looking at you, should those friends not be in a situation where they are looking at you and they're paying money to be in these entities, why not take that same money versus buying the cars and the vacations and start buying those businesses again? It goes back to the same thing. You've got a bunch of friends that are all tech savvy. One of them's good at marketing. One of them's good at the ability to showcase customer satisfaction. One of them's good at whatever the case may be as far as the business side of things. Take your skill sets and combine them. And now take your resources money-wise and do the same thing. You got parents that are giving you money to buy iPhones, thousands of dollars. Take that same money and start buying these businesses and start taking advantage of real wealth. We're using fake wealth, which is the iPhone. No offense to the iPhone, but the bottom line of it is it's a beautiful tool if you use effectively.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into morning routine because I know the waking up and picking up your beautiful tool iPhone is a big problem for a lot of people. So how do you get up, dress up, and show up? What's your morning routine like?
One of the first things I say, and I'm glad this is a grown and sexy show, you got to get your sexercise on. That's must in the morning. You got to get the juices in the blood flowing, right?
Yeah.
So you got to get your exercise on. One, you've got to get your mental correct when it comes down to your routine, meaning that your exercise routine. Another part of that is your prayer. You've got to get that prayer piece in there to make sure that you appreciate those blessings and the bountifulness of it all. You know, the one thing that whether you are non-necessarily religious or religious, you've got to put that God feature in there where you're saying, okay, listen, thank you, God, for all the blessings I've gotten. Thank you for all the mistakes that have been highlighted. And more importantly speaking, appreciating the fact that you're still here breathing. Because when you think about the number of people that are not every single morning, you know, it's 180 some thousand on the average that are not waking up in the morning. You appreciate that. Then you start looking at your day. You want to look at the news, you know, what's happening and how do you look at how you're going to position yourself accordingly this morning. You know, sometimes bad news permeates your mind and it gets you all messed up. So you got to look at that thing. And then sometimes you got to look at some funny stuff. You know, you might throw the cartoons in there. So you start that day off with humor because that's the most important thing, humor. So putting all those factors together, that's how I start my day.
Why is that so important? Why does like that 30 minutes, 20 minutes so critical in priming yourself for the day?
Because you have to be able to get that mindset right. Okay. If you start, that's why I said, you know, even if you have a partner and it's a sensual sexual thing, that starts the mindset right because now you're looking at the day a little differently. You're feeling differently. And that's that part of it. Then there's the exercise part of it where you start out saying to yourself, I just got to feel a certain way. I got to pump the body up, right? The next order of business is how you look at yourself in the morning. You know, you look up, you get up, and you're like, okay, oh, you're drudging getting up. Again, that's another part of the process. You got to stop drudging getting up. You got to get up with that feeling that everything is okay because you got to like what you do. If you don't like what you do, that's another part of it. It's time to change, get into entrepreneurship because you don't like that. But it's so important because you got to feel as though you're ready for the day. You know, you can't tackle it if you're not ready for all the experiences that are going to happen. And one of the things I say to some clients, listen, I use the concept is who's going to stick me up today? Who's going to screw me today? If you start that out that morning and say, okay, somebody's going to do it to you, right? Then by the end of the day, if nothing happens, you're comfortable. But you got to have that piece in there where you kind of say, okay, something's going to be uncomfortable today. But if you realize that's just a small part of your day, then you don't get upset. Because some people get that road rage thing going. They get to the store, they get pissed off. They get to the office, they're pissed off because somebody stepped on their shoes and somebody said something to them on the train. If you already adapt the fact that somebody's going to do something to me today that's going to make me uncomfortable, it blows right over. You say, yeah, it happened. Okay, no big deal.
Yeah, and I think that quiet time, that meditative or that prayer piece of it actually prepares you for what's to come. Like you said, be ready to fight, but you have to gear your mind for what's to come, as you say. You, especially with working out, like you feel like you've done the hardest part of the day, right? And so anything else that comes at you is going to be a lot easier to handle. Stress levels lower, but also you're ready. You're ready to for battle.
It makes it a lot easier. You
Yeah.
know, you don't feel as though you're so uncomfortable because all of a sudden somebody tackles you and you're like, oh, today's going to be a wonderful day. Well, not every day is going to be wonderful, folks. It's just not realistic.
Yeah.
You have to prepare yourself to realize that some things are going to go a little different, but don't be taken aback by it.
And that's what I feel the morning routine does is actually set up that mindset, set up that entrepreneur. When I say get up, dress up, and show up, I'm not talking about physically, you know, wash face, makeup, grooming, clothes. I mean, those things you said, prayer, exercising, those gratitude, you know, even if you're journaling, that's what I meant by getting up, dressing up so you can show up for the day to your clients, to your family, for yourself, and show up a better version of you where you're just genuinely just happy and also in control and calm.
I'll throw one other piece in there too. When it comes to the family at home, sometimes you got to basically be able to say to folks at home there that you need your peace at home. And that peace starts the night before. You know, you have to say as parents or you have to say as a couple for the kids, don't just barge in the room here. Don't just indoctrinate me tonight or tomorrow morning with the problem. Let me ease into this. Because so often parents, kids get these issues and conflicts and you go home, there's a problem. You go to work, you got a problem that started at home. You couldn't deal with it because you got hit before you should have been hit with it. So you got to turn around, have that time and say, okay, now sometime this evening we can talk about this. Sometime this morning we can talk about this. Don't hit me right now. I need to be able to adjust. I got other problems at home. I got other problems at work.
You sound like a man, Darius. You sound like my husband. That's exactly what he says.
Hey, time out there.
Give me time to wake up first before we start talking about anything.
That's right. That's
I
it.
can respect that.
That's it.
I had to learn to honor that because I've been up at 4 a.m. He's getting up at 6, so I've been primed and ready to go.
Mm-hmm,
2 hours, but out of respect, and you're absolutely right. Your home environment really does affect how you kind of get your day going. Because you think about it, your room, your house, it's all habit triggered. There's things in there that can trigger your habits to get your day going. And so if you don't have the right things there, you can also start a momentum that you could go in the opposite way.
And then one of the things I want to throw in there real quickly for ladies. Ladies, do not start a man's day with an argument.
Yep, I've heard that.
His day is messed up for the entire 12 hours or 8 hours that his day is starting. Give him the ability to please, not stress, please let him slide. If the night before you caught him at something, you caught a phone number, you caught something that didn't look right, wait, give it time before you address it. Don't address it the first thing that morning because there might be a reason why these things are kind of out of sort. But don't attack it first thing in the morning. He's got working for a train authority. He may be working as a policeman. He may be working in an office. He is going to turn around and tell you everybody else's day is going to be messed up because his day got messed up. So please get that man peace in the morning.
Understood. Darius, where can we connect with you? Where can we find you? And your upcoming book, when is the anticipated publishing date? Fill us in.
The publishing date, I've got one coming out now. It's going to be Leadership DNA. That'll be out October 24th. And they can reach me at DariusARoss.com. Again, that's DariusARoss.com. And if they're interested in coaching and or programs, you can reach me at Dr. Speak to You, DRSPKTOYOU at Yahoo. And just in the subject matter, just put coaching and programs.
Fantastic. Darius, it's been such a pleasure sharing your wealth of knowledge, over 30 years of real estate guru and an entrepreneurial mindset. It's been really amazing having you on the show. Thank you for taking the time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Icon.
Of course.
See you well.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,